Second. Okay, and we are live. Coming at you live, it is Deal Flow Live. This is the show where we talk about buying and selling businesses. We break down the intricacies, things you could be considering if you're thinking about buying a business, if you're thinking about selling a business, or if you're just trying to make some deals. And we talk about what kinds of things you should consider. And as you might have noticed, Ryan and I are not in our usual studio today. We're coming at you from the same cozy little office loft here. But we are covering a very interesting topic today. We're covering something that we haven't really covered on the show before that Ryan and I are both really excited to cover, which is, should you keep it quiet if you want to sell your business? Ryan, I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation here because this is like, I think we're probably going to have a different opinion than most people usually have on this. We're going to go through the pros and the cons, though. We're going to kind of talk about both schools of thoughts and why you would want to keep it quiet, why you might not want to keep it quiet, what some of the benefits and drawbacks are on both sides. So I'm excited to dig in and get into it.
Yeah, this is a great episode. I think it's really important because we run into a lot of people who contact Scale. They're at the point where they have, up until that point, been quiet or just talked to a single broker. And when they're reaching out to Scale, that's kind of, because we talk about how we help people buy and sell, that's their first real push into be like, I'm going to almost out loud saying, hey, I want to sell my business. So it's a big topic and there's kind of a taboo around it. And I think people there's a way to do it and there's a way that you shouldn't approach it. And we've heard stories on the extremes of both ends. So I think it's a really important episode for people to hear, especially if they're considering selling.
Yeah. So I think, without further ado, we can go ahead and dive into it and kind of cover both sides. The first side, let's cover why you might want to keep it quiet first, because I might be wrong here, but this tends to be the predominant thought. This is the school of thought that I think most people thinking about selling their business tend to fall on, is I should just keep it quiet. I should tell no one. Maybe my family and my close friends, but I should tell no employees, no competition, no one. Let's talk a little bit about reasons like why someone might want to do that. Some of the things people tell me is like they're worried that their employees will jump ship and want to leave if they tell them. They're worried that their competition will find out and try to take advantage of them. They're worried that people might reach out and try to buy their business and give them lowball or bad offers or try to screw them over somehow. And the first thing I would say is like, those are all valid concerns. It's definitely not something to be discounted. And, sometimes bad situations do happen, but let's kind of break those down piece by piece. So if someone says that they're worried that their employees are going to kind of jump ship, I think that it depends on how you're trying to sell your business. If it's something that if you need to sell your business as kind of an emergency sale, if something drastically changed in your life, and if you think that that your employees would hear that, and if you think that they would leave, it's definitely something to really think on and consider. And if you think that the business could start to fall apart a little bit, or it could start to suffer a little bit if you were to sell it, then it could.
I lost you here. Can't hear you.
You can't hear me? What about now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. If you think that your employees are going to jump ship, and if you think that the perception is going to be that the business is going downhill as a result of you selling, then that's the time when you seriously might want to keep it tight-lipped. You might not want to tell everyone, because you lose a lot of leverage and you lose a lot of value of the business if key employees leave. And in the first business that I sold, it was our family business while I had another business running, we actually had this happen. We had a key employee that left because the sale dragged on for a little bit too long. There was essentially two key employees, and both of them were thinking about buying the business. And we were looking at both of them. And because it dragged on for so long, a key employee left, and that ended up kind of cutting some of the legs out from under us with our negotiating power with the one who ultimately bought it, and it drastically reduced the price. And so there's a real, argument there that if we would have maybe kept things a little bit more tight-lipped, maybe a little bit more, behind the scenes, maybe we could have navigated that better. And sometimes that can be the case. In our case, we weren't going to be staying in the business at all after we sold it. So that was part of the perception, was that like there's going to be a lot of burden of, extra responsibility and things to take on if we leave. And if any employees leave, that other employees will have to take on, and things might change too quickly. So I think you got to take an inventory of like who your key employees are, what the perception would be if you do decide to sell, and what direction that means the business is going in. On the other hand, though, if you are selling your business in a way where you're like selling to someone very strategic, maybe like a bigger company that has big plans for the business and they're going to drastically increase what it's able to do, then I would actually make the argument that it's really smart to get buy-in from your employees early and just kind of like frame the whole idea of selling as like a step that you're taking to grow the business rather than just to offload it. And if you can kind of frame that narrative correctly and make it like an exciting thing where like maybe you even talk about some of the potential like new responsibilities that they could take on for where they could earn raises or new job responsibilities or titles and elevate their career. And if you have employees that you think would be excited about that kind of thing, then I think it makes a lot of sense. Also, Kevin Hawthorne, good evening to you. Wow, from Lakeland, Florida. We are literally in Orlando, Florida, so right around the corner. We're glad you're tuning in. Let us know if you have any questions too. But that's what I would say. Ryan, what do you think about like if someone's employees leaving?
Backing up there, I think there's a way that you do and don't put your business out there for sale first and foremost. I think, going on Facebook and doing it, bad idea. Walking around your business going, well, got to sell the place, just too old, can't do it, bad idea. And I think that's the image some people have. And in my mind, I think that, your employees, it depends on the size. Like if you have layers, like frontline, middle management, managers, like if you're of a medium size, say, you have a decent amount of people, like the people who are below you will know, and odds are most of the people who are in the upper will stick around. Some of the frontline or the newer people might leave or whatever, but that's just how things work. It really depends on your business as well. Different businesses have different, types of people who live in it. We've seen across the board, trade businesses tend to have a higher retention, simply because, if you're making good money, as most tradespeople do, the only other option is to go start your own business, and not everybody wants to do that. So if you're going to be rolled in and your life's not going to change that much, you don't really care what the name on the truck is. You're still getting paid, and that's the end of that. So when it comes to employees, you have to just gauge what your size is. Like in your dad's example, 2 people, you're just going to have to sit down and go, look, hey, we're selling the business, this is what it is. And then you just got to kind of try to navigate that minefield. But if you have more people, it tends to be a little bit easier, even though you would think more people, more problems, usually less or so, because there's more people involved whose livelihoods are at stake. So they're less likely to say, I'm going to go out and try to find or do something new. And it's like, okay, well, this is fine. It does what I need to do. I enjoy it, or it pays my bills. So why would I go look elsewhere? It doesn't really matter who's cutting the check as long as I get it. So you have to read your people. And that's why it's so very important that you have those conversations, especially if you have more people. But, if you own a large, I'm going to use Subway. If you own a Subway, let's say you're doing this, I'm using this example. The sandwich artist doesn't need to know about the sale is happening. The manager of the Subway should know. The owner is the one selling it. So realistically, you got to figure out where the information needs to be disseminated and where it doesn't, because the sandwich artist his life has zero change when the new person comes in. So it's who's going to be impacted.
It's a great point. You absolutely have to be thinking about who's going to be impacted most. And you've also got to kind of like tune into, you got to be honest with yourself about how in tune you are with your employees too. If you're kind of absentee and you aren't really like in the day to day with your employees and you don't know them that well, there's many businesses that are run that way, then like there's a decent chance that there's plenty of things going on behind the scenes and dynamics that are being had that you're just not privy to and you're not aware of. And you could be really, really like shaking up someone's perception of their livelihood if you just drop some crazy news on them. But in the same token, as a business broker, we have a lot of situations where some of the primary candidates to buy someone's business for a good price, assuming you can bring the funding together, maybe get them an SBA loan or something like that, which is tough these days. But there's other options too. Sometimes the primary candidates to buy your business are your employees, and there's really crafty, smart ways to set that up and to make that happen in a way that works really well for someone. And if you keep that quiet, you're just not taking advantage of that option.
Yeah, I think that's usually in the businesses that have that sort of layer of people where you have some highly committed individuals. If you feel like it's a good fit, you do maybe want to extend the courtesy of offering it up, or like, proportionally offering it up to a few of them. In some cases where you do have a larger staff, but they're very responsible, maybe if you have a marketing and a finance and a operations guy, maybe you're like, hey, do you guys want to come in and be co-owners? It's one of those things where you can find those creative solutions that we always kind of talk about and kind of push, because your own, it's easiest to find your own. It's easiest to find food in your own house rather than go out to a restaurant and try to find something you like on a menu. So a roundabout way of saying it, but if you have people and if you've built the staff that you like, I think is really what it boils down to, and you've built a competent staff, going to them and having this conversation shouldn't be weird. It should really kind of be refreshing, and it should be fairly straightforward. It also depends on who you're selling to or who else is in the market. Like a sale to a firm is going to be a lot different and interpreted a lot different than a sale to your neighbor who has the exact same business as you, but you've known him for 25 years. Like the sales and the interpretation are going to be different.
And that's such a good point. It really it depends on what that brings me back to is it kind of depends on the kind of culture you've built. If you do have employees that you're really close with and this goes back to if this is something you're considering in the future and this isn't like an immediate thing for you, this goes back to some of the importance of building a culture of transparency. You want to have as much of a culture of transparency within reason as you can with your employees, because if you've built that, then they're going to trust you. They're going to trust whatever you tell them when you come to them and let them know that there's a sale happening. And if it really is something that you think is going to help the business, you're going to be able to get buy-in from them. I want to tackle another kind of common conception here too, which is people think that someone's going to, if they make that news more public, that someone's going to, come try to screw them over or make a low ball offer or get them into a situation that would be bad for them. And I think the reality of that is it's an honest thing that could happen, and you should do your research and make sure that, you're well equipped going into a sale and that you have the right people in your corner, people that have been through it, that know how it works, that have the connections. But if you keep it too tight-lipped and you don't give enough opportunities to bring numerous buyers to the table, you are drastically decreasing the value of what you could sell for. Because if you think about it, I always say, think of it like just an auction on eBay or something, or like a garage sale even. If you have something that you're trying to sell and you have one possible buyer for it, especially if they know that they're the only buyer, that buyer all of a sudden has all the leverage. So if you've decided you're going to sell and you give one person all of the negotiating leverage in the entire deal, then they can kind of name their price and terms, and you're probably not going to sell it for the best price and terms that you want. But if instead you've got this thing that you're trying to sell and you've got 30 potential buyers or 50 potential buyers, maybe over 100 different potential buyers, you're going to be able to command probably some of the best price and terms that you could imagine on that business within reason. It's the same thing as selling anything. So when you keep it too quiet and you don't let it get out there, within reason and through the right channels and the right way, then you're really just cutting yourself short on what kind of value you could get from it. And one of the biggest regrets that I have with that first business that I sold that I mentioned is not bringing more buyers to the table. We thought, well, we'll just make it easy. We'll sell it to someone internal. They know the business. They'll be able to run it well. And of course, that was true, but we probably could have gotten more money for it, better terms, and had a better result if we would have brought more buyers to the table and tried to put them into kind of a bidding war.
Yeah, and I think again, the right channels is the key term there, and understanding what type of sale you're going for. Obviously, wanting to be fully removed, partially involved, all these things factor into how you go about it, and you will get lowball. That's just if selling anything, you will get people who undersell, lowball. Like if you enter into the marketplace, you will. I mean, I was selling something this weekend, and I was at a place that had a lot of different people buying, and I went to probably 12 people getting assessed, like getting my stuff looked at, everybody at different prices. I tracked each price until I found the person who was in an exact situation with an exact place and not only met, but beat my price. So you just have to keep going out there, not just going, I'm not saying go to everybody who's a buyer and say, here, assess me. But like I went to people who specifically were looking for my stuff. Go specifically to people who are looking for your area, or find people who know the people to talk to. So how you approach it is definitely going to be a big factor in avoiding the multitude of lowball offers, which we see a lot on broker sites specifically, because people are just allowed to do whatever. So
sure,
be intentional with your selling.
And Ryan and I both actively look at businesses to buy, and I'll be totally honest, sometimes we make lowball offers. It's part of the game. It's just like if you can buy something for cheaper than you want to pay for it, then it's to your benefit to do it. But the thing is, you don't have to take an offer if you get it. That's one thing I really want to impress on anyone listening that's thinking about selling your business. You could be very excited about selling to someone, get an offer from them, and if it's not the right offer from you, at the end of the day, you can say no, or you can say, make a better offer. This offer doesn't work for me because of this. Like in anything, it's a negotiation. And so like one thing that's really important to know, it's just kind of like a little, I guess, tangent here. But if you are selling your business, the thing that you need to know if you're a first-time business seller, is you're probably going to be dealing with people who are not first-time business buyers, at least in the potential pool of candidates. And so they're probably going to make a lowball offer at first. I would expect it, count on it, in fact. And just don't take their first offer at face value. If someone makes an offer that doesn't work for you, just be prepared to tell them it doesn't work for me and here's why. And kick off a negotiation. But don't be afraid to get a lowball offer, because you absolutely don't have to take it if you get one. And there's things that you can do to protect yourself, like signing a letter of intent and doing lots of the due diligence that you need to do before you ever even get to signing a letter of intent that can really get everyone clear on exactly what the price and terms of this sale need to look like.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said on how to handle people coming with offers, and also vetting who to speak to. We deal with a lot of that with people who come to us. We're kind of the last resort, when really people consider it kind of I throw my hands up, I'll just talk to these guys. But realistically, what I think people come to terms with is that to get the most favorable positioning and to get more, if not exactly or more than what they want, normally there's got to be some give and take. It's not just as much of an exchange as they want it to be. And, we work with not only clients, but with the broker as well, who is very adept at finding these very creative and positive solutions that, he's built a very large business and brokerage firm around, which leaves everybody safe. in the transaction, which is the, paramount, that everybody goes home safe, but also gets everybody what they want at the end of the day. So it's sort of as we've met more people and spoken to more people, it's this sort of more, I hate to call it creative because everybody says creative. It is a more realistic way of doing a large transaction like this, because when you're managing sometimes millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in a transaction, it's never just a one-to-one. It's not a Zelle payment. It takes time. I mean, even buying a house, there's a lot of stuff, escrow, all this stuff. So treat a business like it is a big purchase instead of just it's a business. It's just I'm giving you the keys. It's not that.
Well, to your point, it's such a big process, and often it takes so much longer than people would expect, that the reality is it's going to be very hard to keep it quiet the whole time that you try to sell your business. So like one school of thought might say, like, with a lot of reason, like, if it's going to come out eventually, why not just bring it out from the beginning and gain the advantages of making it a little bit more open? You also, like, to some of Ryan's points, like going through the proper channels, putting it on some kind of listing site through like either a brokerage or listing it yourself online, you're not really listing the exact details of the business. So there are protections in place to be able to list it without actually identifying the business. And that can be a really useful thing, because then you're able to cherry pick which submissions you get that you actually want to entertain and want to proceed with. And if you see your terrible neighbor Jim down the street that you would never want to know that you're selling your business because he's an asshole and is going to tell all of your competition that you don't want to know, if you see his name come in, you don't have to talk to him. So there are ways to set up the proper channels with things like that and have a little bit more protection.
Yeah, and if what you have is really as good as we hope it is, and that you know it to be, no competition is going to be trying to snipe just a little bit. They're gonna your competition, if it's good enough, will likely come in and try to just grab it up, the whole thing. Like, you do, in a certain cases, you do want your competition to be interested in doing a deal with you, because at the end of the day, you've just given them market share that they paid a flat fee for, and you can pay a lot more to try and grab. You could pay 3 times what you're selling the business for in marketing just enough to get a quarter of what you have. So it does help to have a good, fresh look on how competition can help you sell. But
yeah,
it's a wild landscape out there. I think people don't, can take months. I mean, you can get to the end of a deal, an LOI, everything was good, the money got confirmed, and then the buyer ghosts, and then you're back to square one. I mean, it happens more frequently than we care to admit, but with some of the stuff that we've started to develop a really good, reliable network of buyers and connecting people with people who know buyers, and just the process of making a transaction happen where it's not a one-to-one, here's the full price, here's the full business. It's a very safe transaction for both people. These things get done quicker when you have all these railings in place. It looks excessive, but it makes the path easier.
One final thing I want to cover that's a huge thing here is a lot of times, like, especially if you're selling a business for the first time and you haven't really seen how these things play out, there are many misconceptions that you probably have about how people perceive the value of your business. And the odds are, like, I would almost bet tons of money on it, you're probably going to be wildly wrong at just how people perceive the value and how people value your business. It's almost always, whenever I talk to people, like 9.9 times out of 10, they're wrong about what they think their business is worth, whether they overvalue it or undervalue it. I see both happen. The reality is you're probably wrong. And so if you go to people and start mentioning it to people, you can start to get that feedback and actually understand what your business is worth and figure out if it's even the right time to sell. You might just have a business that's not worth what you need it to be worth to sell for the kind of money that you need to retire, to maybe go on some huge vacation or start some new business, start some new life chapter, whatever it's about, like whatever your goal is financially with selling the business, it might just not be there yet. And you might need to kind of go back to the drawing board And you're not going to know that unless you get real market feedback. You can get a valuation of a business, and we do valuations of businesses. So if you're listening and that's something you're interested in, let us know. Just contact me and I can set you up. And those can be really useful to have. But the one thing I'll say, even to someone who's getting a valuation of their business, is at the end of the day, the market rules. Whatever someone's willing to pay for your business is what it's actually worth. And until you hear and get those real offers from people, you don't have that real feedback. So even if you're thinking about selling your business in 3 years, and I'll give like a little bit of an anecdote on this that I'm dealing with right now. But even if you're thinking about selling your business in 3 years, it can be really good to go to potential buyers and just ask, hey, what would make you pay this much for my business? Here's where it's at today. What would make you pay this much for it? And a good buyer, a good savvy, experienced buyer will typically tell you, like, if you need to sell your business for $5 million, they'll probably tell you it's worth like $1 million right now, bro. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but if you put this in place and if you get to this amount of profit every year, and if you have, a little bit more spread out customer retention, like if you have less customer concentration, maybe like no one customer representing 20% or more of your revenue, maybe you've got a big one right now, you de-risk these few things and set these things up and have a little bit more profit, then we'd pay $5 million for it. And that can give you a really clear plan of execution for the next 3 years, whatever it is, to go build the type of business that will sell for what you need to sell it for. That is maybe the single biggest benefit I would give of like not staying quiet about this. And if you look at like who's operating at the top of the game in this, Ryan and I work on a lot of these private equity deals where people are literally like going into an entire venture, raising money to go buy a bunch of businesses and bring them together as a unit to eventually sell in like 2 to 5 years or so. I was just talking to one today, this guy, basically this group of guys doing a roll up of roofing companies. And this is a 2 to 5 year play for them, meaning they will buy a group of these companies, sell them no sooner than 2 years from now, but maybe as many as 5 or more years from now. And before they even bought one of the companies, they've talked to a bunch of buyers, like a bunch of potential buyers of the entire unit of businesses, to ask what would get them to pay a certain amount for them. So what that does for them, it gives them a very clear roadmap to go and say, okay, we need to buy this, 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 and this. We need to grow them to this amount. They need to look like this, have these systems in place, these people in place, and this company will pay around that much for them. And maybe a few companies would pay that much for them. So like the biggest benefit you can get is like the strategic planning ahead of time. Go talk to potential buyers way before you're thinking about selling. If you have the luxury of being able to prepare like that, and you will get the roadmap. And I'll give a little shameless plug. If you want to get in contact with Ryan or I to talk about something like that, that's exactly what we specialize in. So if you're a business that's got a couple of years of runway and you're trying to prepare for that, that's what we do at Scale for Sale. So just get in contact with us at scaleforsale.com or just message me or Ryan on any social media, and we can help get you set up with a plan that gets you there and kind of reverse engineers that outcome. But that's kind of the biggest reason that I would be thinking about doing this. What do you think on that note, Ryan?
I think that you have to remember that the investor that's doing that is usually an institution. So very few single buyers will have that sort of overview. So, with the guy who tells you he'll give you 100K saying, hey, what makes my business $1 million? And him saying 10 more of them is probably not helpful. So when you're talking to institutions, that's who you're going to get that sort of quality feedback from. As I said, we work with them, so we understand, and we have them in the wings that want to buy these types. But also just know you don't have to sell immediately. Like sometimes we've run into a lot of people who are thinking about selling or in a spot where they're like, it's just more problem than it's worth. And then we sit down, we talk, and we say, okay, let's fix X, Y, and Z. And then we get in there and inevitably we're like, okay, there's a little bit more here. Let's just clean this up as well, just because we want to make a nice place for you to come back to. And the business owner kind of looks at their business after we're done and goes, oh my God, this is great. I love this. I don't want to sell anymore. I'm having fun again. And that's also the thing that I think people think that when they're not having fun or when they're unhappy with it, it means to let it go. And usually that's the worst time to let it go because you're unhappy because it ain't working that well. But a lot of the people
to sell for the least amount of money possible when it's the most miserable to run and to own.
Exactly. So, even if you have a business where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get the mark I want, we've been brought on for just people have, on retainer equity percentages, just repeat contracts. Of people just being like, hey, help me with my business, help me keep having fun with it. Now I have more attainable goals that I feel like I can reach for evaluation because now I look at my business and it's fun again. So that's also something people need to remember. Just because it doesn't feel good and it may not be the best and you're just trying to get it off your hands, it's not the moment. There's some stuff to do and it can be done.
That's exactly right. Anything you would add to this? Any common misconceptions you see that we haven't covered? I think those are some of the big ones.
Yeah. I would say don't take the first offer ever.
Yeah.
Just a rule of thumb. That's not like sales. Whoever offers first is wrong. No, it's just probably because you might not know, you might think you know what you have, but the more you talk to people, the more people that you talk to and learning how they look at it, you'll get a better idea of what you actually have in the eyes of other people, which is who's going to be paying you. So never forget that. You always want to get a feel first, not like a hard deal done first. And you want to really understand how your business is looked at to then maybe understand where your valuation lies before you actually start saying, let's go back and forth on offers.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Anything we missed, Brody?
No, I think those are the things that I would really be thinking about. Oh yeah. Hey, Julius, always great to have you. Those are just things I think if you're working towards something like this, you really need to be thinking about these things and deciding how you're going to execute these things years in advance. So really think about what we said in this episode and figure out do you have that culture of transparency with your employees? Could you start to curate it? Could you start to dictate a narrative that gets everyone excited about a potential sale and breeds opportunity? And how can you avoid being the statistic? The statistic is the business owner that is the 70 to 80% of business owners that try to sell their business and fail to do so. So the likelihood is the odds tell us that you're going to fail to sell your business. The likelihood is if you don't prepare, and it's just more likely that happens than not. And it's because people don't prepare like this. They don't think about it. So talk to us if you are going through some of this. If you're unsure of your plan, if you think you might need some help and you just don't really know how to navigate it, scaleforsale.com or message me or Ryan. You can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Those are the best places to message me. Ryan, where can they find you?
Find me on LinkedIn, Ryan Santo. Just shoot me a request and then let's talk. I mean, we do this because we enjoy watching people, enjoy their business again, whether that's in the process and enjoy the process of selling it or whether they fall in love with running it again. I mean, that's why we do what we do.
That's right. And if you are someone who wants to talk about it, we look forward to talking to you. And in the meantime, whoever you are tuning in, we're glad to have you here. Excited to have you in the conversation. Shoot us any topics you want us to cover in future episodes too. We love doing these special edition episodes where it's covering a particular topic. We also look at deals sometimes. So if you've got a deal that you want to share, even if it's on a no names basis, we're happy to cover it. Maybe it's something that you're thinking about making an offer on, or maybe it's your business and you want to just give the details without the name so that you can hear us hash it out and talk about what our honest opinion of it. Feel free to do that. You don't even have to tell us that's what you're doing, but we'll hash it out either way if we like the topic and like the business, and you can get our opinion. Until next time, though, tune in every Tuesday night right around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we look forward to talking to you next time and covering more deals.
See ya.
See ya.